Hello everyone, welcome to the Abrasive Noise Podcast. This is Luke Parsons. Thanks very much for joining me on my first ever podcast. I'm just going to I'm mucked up already. I'm going to dive straight into this and tell you what's coming up on episode 1 today. So I'm going to start by introducing myself a little bit, and just tell you a bit about myself, talk about how I got into metal. Hopefully it won't take too long. Then I'll talk a bit about the podcast and what I want to achieve with it, what kind of content to expect. Then I'll talk a bit about some bands that I've recently discovered that sort of fly under the radar and deserve a bit more attention, and bands that I've sort of really been getting into lately. And then I'll finish off with a bit of a shameless self-promotion section where I'll tell you all about what other things I do. So I do a little bit of, not everything, but a lot of stuff. So as I said, I'm Luke Parsons. I'm 28 years old. I'm from a town called Crawley, which is slap bang in the middle of London and Brighton, pretty much, in the southeast of England. I've lived here pretty much all my life, other than a year when I lived in a place called Chailey, which is like a sort of rural village. It's not too far away from here, actually. It's about a 40-minute drive. But we're there for a year and sort of came back to Crawley. It's a bit of an okay town, really. It's not great. It's not terrible. It's just all right. One big negative of it really is it's not really a music scene here, especially not a heavy music scene. So it's kind of just like blues players and sort of dad rock, I guess, playing in pubs and stuff like that. We don't actually have a proper dedicated music venue, so it's if you want to sort of go and see a local band, quotation marks, you sort of have to go to Brighton or London, and those two are pretty good, to be fair. There's always someone good playing there when it's not a pandemic. Had to say that at some point, didn't I? So in terms of my sort of music listening life, I was pretty casual music listener growing up. I wasn't really into music that much. I was more into video games. It's quite funny because now it's the opposite. I'm a massive music fan and sort of casual gamer. Sort of growing up, I sort of listened to bands like Queen, ABBA, Meatloaf. So it's kind of like a mix of pop and rock music. And I think that's probably what the metal listening has sort of stemmed from. But I didn't start listening to metal till I was about 14, because at that point in my life I was sort of we moved out into Chailey when I was about 13, and then when we came back, that was sort of I met a guy in one of my classes, and he sort of showed me Trivium, showed me I think the two songs that he showed me were Pull Harder on the Strings of Your Martyr, and I think it's Detonation. And I really liked sort of the guitar stuff in it. I wasn't too keen at the time on harsh vocals. It was completely new to me at that point, so it was a bit like, whoa, what the hell is he saying? What is this? But I sort of, from there, I just kind of, I didn't really pay too much attention to the harsh vocals and just tried to find metal that was sort of clean. So Trivium's The Crusade. That's the sort of first metal album I really listened to, and if you know Trivium, that's their sort of clean sounding album in terms of vocals. There's not really any harsh vocals on it, but there's a lot of really cool guitar stuff. Lots of great riffs, great solos. Still one of my, I was gonna say one of my favourites, but probably not so much now. But for a long time it was quite in my top 5 for sure. So I then started listening to other things, bands like Slipknot, Metallica, just all those sort of mainstream metal bands, I guess. It was good at the time because I'd started this new school when I was 14, so I was meeting a lot of sort of new friends, and they all seemed to be into the same kind of music as me. So my friendship group now, it's pretty much people I knew from school anyway, so I've known them all a long time. and I'd say most of them now are sort of more into pop punk and punk rock and stuff like that. I only really have one friend who's really as much into metal as me. He's called Tom. He's a bit of a gig buddy, to be honest. Yeah, it's you gotta have at least one friend that's into the weirder stuff that you're into. So yeah, that's pretty much me up to now. So now we get to the good stuff. I'm going to play the first track I've got today. I've got 4 tracks for this podcast, so there's plenty of music listening to do as well today. So the first band I'm going to feature, it's called Juliet Ruin. They're a Canadian metalcore band. This song I'm going to play is called Fake Stigmata. It's taken from their new 4-track EP Dark Water, which is out on the 26th of March. Juliet Ruin is recommended for anyone who enjoys heavy and melodic metal with powerful vocals, especially those who already have the Agonist, Ginger and Killswitch Engage in their rotation. Band sort of commented on the song saying, Fake Stigmata is our 3rd and heaviest track from our Dark Water EP. It explores darker lyrical themes and grittier vocals and instrumentals. Talking about the EP sort of as a whole, he said, the listening experience we are going for is a hard-edged but catchy experience with lyrics you can shout in anger, but it also leans positive on message. So here we go, this is Juliet Ruin with Fake Stigmata. There we go. That was Juliet Ruin with Fake Stigmata. I really like that track. It's just like, it just sounds massive. Like the guitars just sound really sort of in your face and lots of chugs. Everyone loves a chug. I really like it when bands do that sort of in their production. They make it sound like you're at a live gig. Yeah, it's like that sort of kind of wall of sound. Yeah, just a solid track. I listened to the EP last night, and it's pretty much, that's a very good sort of representation of the EP as a whole. So yeah, go and check it out when it's released. It's Dark Water on the 26th of March. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the podcast goals, or what I want to achieve. I guess there's 3 sort of main reasons why I'm doing this. First reason really is I want to sort of help bands that are, sort of underground or independent, sort of have a platform to showcase their music, come on and sort of have a chat with me about music if they want to. I just like the idea of helping the smaller bands, the ones that are still really good, but they just need a little bit of help from us smaller guys as well. Because I remember sort of before I started doing Abrasive Noise stuff that I had this kind of false belief that underground music was pretty bad and just people just dicking around basically, but it's definitely not that anymore, if it ever was like that. These are genuine people that are making great music basically, so I just want to help them out in my own way. Second reason, I just want to help people find new music basically. It's always great when you sort of go to your mates and say, have you heard this band? And they go no, and then they listen to them and it's like, oh shit man, this is great. It's always a really good feeling to experience that. So I want to sort of project that out into the world rather than just my mates and just help people find new music they like, and kind of dovetails with the first reason really, ultimately to help bands be more successful, be able to survive. That's another big thing really for underground bands. It's harder for them to survive if they're doing this thing full time. And the third reason is very simply because I like podcasts. I like listening to podcasts. It's kind of a new thing that I've sort of started doing. I sort of want to do a bit of a shout out here for two podcasts that I've been listening to a lot recently. First one is Noob Heavy. If you follow Abrasive Noise, you've probably seen me retweeting and all that sort of stuff, Noob Heavy stuff. It's run by a guy called Carcass Bomb. I think he likes to be called by, not by his real name, obviously. But yeah, he was really supportive, like when I started Abrasive Noise 2 years ago, I think it was now. Yeah, just like general advice, SEO advice, which is like stuff to do with your website, just try and get it seen on Google and stuff. And yeah, it's just he's a Australian guy. He's very entertaining on his podcast, and just in general, I think. He does sort of like band interviews, plays music, talks to people like sort of record label owners and stuff like that. And yeah, I just really like listening to his podcasts. I wish he did them a bit more often, because I think he does it once a month. It's one of the 2 podcasts that I suppose inspired me to do this. So cheers, Carcass Bomb. And the other one I really like is Metal Epidemic, and that's one I've sort of found more recently, sort of last 2 months or so. That's done by 3 guys, Dave, Duncan and Kyle. And yeah, that's just a really sort of, it's more about them rather than the music, because they're just like really funny and just really entertaining, especially Duncan. He's a bit of a wildcat, I'd say. This is just a really fun podcast to listen to. That one's done once a month as well. Those ones are a bit longer. They really go for it. They go to like 2 to 3 hours. So it's quite good, like if you're working or something, like I do, because I work from home, so I have an office job. And it's quite good to sort of sit there and just listen to their banter, I suppose, while you're working. If you're not doing something too taxing, it's quite fun to sort of tune in and out of. And the music they play is pretty good as well. So yeah, those, after you finish listening to this one, maybe go and give them a follow as well. Give them a listen. Okay, so it's time for another track now. The second track I'm going to play for you today is by a band called Recall the Remains. They're a UK metalcore band from the West Midlands. They formed in 2017, so they're a pretty new band. And their influences include Trivium, Bleed From Within, Whitechapel, Thy Art Is Murder, and Rammstein. So it's a good taste. The single is called The Night Will Bleed, and it's taken from their debut EP Dead Dreams, which was released on 5th of March. So far they have played a host of festivals such as Mammoth Fest, Derby Alt Fest and HRH Metal Festival, sharing the stage with Bleed Within, Decapitated and Rhapsody of Fire, as well as undertaking countless headline shows and tours. So this is Recall the Remains, The Night Will Bleed. Enjoy. There we go, that was Recall the Remains with The Night Will Bleed, taken from their debut EP Dead Dreams, released on 5th of March. Yeah, this was just a really good metalcore track. It doesn't really sort of break any boundaries, but yeah, I just like the riffs. The vocal style was quite interesting, especially with the cleans. It sounded quite like sort of theatrical, almost sort of like like a kind of opera style. Yeah, it's just a enjoyable track for me. Hope you liked it as well. So for this next section, I'm going to talk about 5 bands that I sort of really like that I found doing Abrasive Noise, and just bands that I think people should check out. Not that I'm forcing you to, but it's just just some recommendations. The first band I want to talk about is a band called Sertraline. They're based in the UK. They're a progressive metalcore band. They've released 2 EPs so far. The most recent one was in 2020. It was called Clouded Minds and Silver Lines, and it's an EP I really, really enjoy. It was my favourite EP of that year. It's just, it's like a progressive metalcore / gent sort of EP. So there's quite a lot of sort of technical riffs, sort of weird, sort of rhythmic things going on, and some really nice melodies as well, especially with the vocals. Vocals are sort of a mix of clean and harsh vocals. It's done by a female vocalist called, I can't remember her name, I think it's Lizzie something. Sorry, I should have done my research on that. But she's got really good voice, both clean and harsh vocals. She sort of interlinks both of them, and she just seems to know when to do it at exactly the right time for the tracks. And they're just a really, really solid band. They're a band that I think are gonna go places. It's worth checking out their first EP as well. I mean, it's not as good as Clouded Minds, but it's kind of more sort of, it sounds like a band trying to find their feet. The first EP is called, I think it's called Guilty, and it's just it's a decent EP. It's just, it sounds like a band that is still trying to find their way. And on Clouded Minds and Silver Lines, they've definitely found it. Their feet are firmly stuck on the ground now. They've found their sound, I think, and I can't wait for them to sort of start doing full-length albums, because they got a real potential to be a household name in at least the metalheads household. So just go and check them out. If I was to pick one song, I'd probably say Mean to Me Too is the best on Clouded Minds and Silver Lines EP. But just go check out the whole thing. It's only 20 minutes long, so it's a nice short listen. The second band I want to talk about is it's a band called Elden. They're from Sweden. They're a heavy rock band. Again, they've only released two lots of material, 2 full lengths this time. First one is called Death and Fear, and the second one, which is the one I'm going to sort of talk about more, is it's called Nostromo. I think that's how you say it. And this band as well is just top quality. Like, I just can't believe they're not bigger than they are, really. So, sorry, Death and Fear I think was an EP, actually, now looking at it. But sort of Death and Fear is a good EP in its own right, but Nostromo, their first full length, it just takes their sound to another level. It's kind of like their sound kind of teeters on the sort of pinpoint of hard rock and heavy metal. It's not one or the other. It's kind of, that's why I sort of call it heavy rock, because I like to describe it as Queens of the Stone Age on steroids. That's the kind of best description I can come up with for that. And this Nostromo, the full length, it's got a decent amount of variety. So there's some like really sort of heavy tracks, such as Sail and Savor, which is like the first track off the intro, and then Anubis is like a short, sharp, kind of really anthemic songs. And then sort of the middle of the album, it goes sort of more progressive, sort of reminiscent a little bit of Tool, not too much, but just a little bit. And then they sort of have a really aggressive track near the end, which is quite short. And then the last track is like an epic, almost 10-minute hard rock / doomy kind of track, very progressive. And it's just awesome. It's just an awesome album. And I'd really recommend it if you're into hard rock or sort of traditional heavy metal. It's kind of like a blend of those two styles. And I think that was one of my top albums of the year as well in 2020, as most of these bands that I'm about to talk about are going to be anyway. Third band I wanted to talk about, it's called Orbit Culture. I think they're Swedish as well. and they're sort of thrash / groove metal kind of band. They've been around for a while. I think their first EP was in 2013, and they've released like 5 or 6 bits of material since then, culminating in Nija, which is I think it's their third full-length album, which was released last year, August last year, I think it was. And it's just amazing. It's very dark. They've got like a mechanical sound to their guitars, which is what I really like. So it's kind of like industrial, and it's just such a blend of styles in their music. So it goes from like industrial to death metal to thrash to groove. There's just so much going on. It's a very big sound that they have, in terms of their production, and it's just very in your face, very intense. It's quite cinematic as well in some places. This is kind of generally not just Nija, but the rest of their albums. It all kind of follows a similar kind of pattern, similar kind of sound. It's just more sort of refined in the later releases. My favourite sort of album of theirs is Red Fog, which is an EP, actually. Because the very first song I listened to by them is Saw, which is taken from that EP, Red Fog. And it's just like pound your head. I can't wait to see these guys live when we can, because I can imagine how that's going to sound live. It's going to be like face is going to melt off or something. So yeah, they're another sort of band that I found them a little bit differently to the others. I mean, I actually found them on YouTube because I was watching a music video on YouTube, and it was in my recommended, and I thought, okay, yeah, check that out. Really glad I did, because I'd say they're one of my favourite bands now. Definitely in the top 10. So yeah, go and check out Orbit Culture if you like very heavy, very big sounding music. Next band I want to talk about is Archaon. Archaon, I did a review on, I think it's back in February. It's called Cascadence. And this is a progressive metalcore band that, it's a bit like Searchline, because sorry, they're both UK bands, but it's a bit like Searchline in terms of I could see this band being really big in their sort of subgenre, because their music is just really intense. It's really technical. It's very sort of djenty, like in terms of weird rhythms going on and polyrhythms and things like that. There's a lot of synth work as well, which works really well. And it's just the best thing about Archaon with that album is the vocals. I think the vocals are so like dynamic and so powerful. Like, I think if you actually took away like everything else on that album and just listened to the vocal tracks, I think you'd still be like, I can listen to this. I could just listen to the vocals on their own. It's just that intense, and that you kind of get swept away with them. And because I remember when I was doing a review, I was kind of like, I'm trying to listen to like the guitars and the bass and the drums and whatever, but I just keep getting pulled back to the vocals. They're just so engaging and intense. It's just, it's crazy, because normally I'm not a massive fan of vocals as a whole. Like, I find myself listening more to the instruments rather than vocals, which is probably kind of a weird thing. But there are some like when I like vocals, I really like vocals. It's like I really sort of resonate with them. So yeah, it's kind of a weird thing, but there we go. And the last band I want to talk about is another progressive metal band, not metalcore, but metal band, called Omnerod. They're from Belgium. Again, they've released 2 albums. First album I wasn't a massive fan of, to be honest. I think it's called Ivory June. And the second album I was a massive fan of. It was released in 2019. It was called Arteries. And it's in a similar vein to bands like Between the Buried and Me and Periphery, with a little bit of Dream Theater / Muse. So it's kind of a nice sort of blend of sort of progressive metal, bit of a rock vibe to it. And yeah, it's just Arteries. It's such a good album. It's not something when I started listening to it at the time, like, it wasn't something I was really not a genre I was really into. Like, I'd listened to Between the Buried and Me a little bit, but I'd never really massively got into them. I'm still not massively into them, but with Omnerod, it was like, bloody hell, this is like, in that subgenre itself, this is what I think is the best of it. You know, there's a lot of weird things going on in the album, especially with the first track. It's quite weird in terms of how it builds up. But then there's loads of good riffs. There's loads of good, just good music in it. Some of the songs are quite long. It's quite a long album generally. I think it's about 69 minutes. So yeah, it's quite you have to really sit down and listen to it, I think, to really sort of take it in. And it leads me nicely on into the next track, because it's an Omnerod track. Almost planned that, didn't I? Well, I did plan it. So their new track is called Company Accepted. It's taken from, I believe it's taken from their next album that's coming out, but I don't think they've actually announced the name or when it's coming out yet. But I know they've been working on it because I follow them on Instagram and I've been seeing what they're up to. So yeah, this is Omnerod with Company Accepted. Enjoy.
Changed my life.
What a tune. I really love that tune. So that was Omnerod with Company Accepted. Like, I just love the synths in that. Like, it just sounds so like sort of magical or spacey or something like that. It's just, yeah, just really, really love it. And also sort of like the build up to the sort of final guitar bit, you know, that's really cool as well. Just, yeah, I was banging my head just then. So we've reached the end of the podcast now, so I'm just gonna kind of talk about some random stuff, I suppose. Also, actually, I just want to sort of apologise if you've picked up any weird sounds such as wind chimes or dogs barking or pigeons or whatever, because, you know, my windows in this room are terrible. Yeah, they don't keep out any sound or anything, so yeah, hopefully it hasn't picked up too much. And I think at the beginning I said I was going to plug loads of my stuff that I'm doing here, so I'll do that. So obviously I do Abrasive Noise, which is, you know, it's a website that's got like reviews, articles, track premieres and stuff like that. I've been running that since April 2019, so, you know, quite a while now. I never really sort of intended for it to become what it has, because basically I think it's end of 2018 I was sort of quite a bad place. I was sort of a bit depressed with life. I didn't really have like any sort of creative outlet. I didn't really consider myself creative, but, you know, there was definitely something missing. So I kind of sat down with myself and just said, like, you know, what do I really enjoy right now in my life? And the first thing that popped up was music. And then I thought a bit further, I was like, well, what can I do that relates to music? And I thought, you know, I'm not a bad writer, I'm not a great one. So I thought, yeah, I'll just write some reviews. I was kind of just doing it for myself, really. I wasn't really thinking about sharing it with anyone or anything like that. So I set up like a WordPress like blog thing, and just post them there. And then one day I just decided to sort of share it with people and see what they thought. And, you know, my mates thought I was good at it. You know, they enjoyed what I wrote. So then I thought, yeah, you know, let's just go for it. Let's just, you know, make up a website, come up with a name, which it took me ages. And then, yeah, I just started doing reviews. You know, I sort of met Carcass Bomb, who I spoke about earlier, and he sort of helped me out, got me my first few sort of like PR people to email me music, and it's kind of just gone on from there, really. I sort of experimented a bit with what I wanted to do on the site. You know, I wrote some opinion pieces, but I'm not really a big fan of doing that because, you know, I don't know shit. You know, I'm not an expert in music or anything. I'm just someone that listens to music, and I try to remember that. Don't want to get too big for my boots. And yeah, so I've been doing that for 2 years. So yeah, I've been running it for 2 years, and I've kind of, I don't mind writing reviews, but I'm sort of thinking now to sort of go onto YouTube instead, do video reviews, because it's a bit more sort of, you know, I'm sort of more out there, not just hiding behind, you know, words. And also it's kind of lonely doing reviews on your own. Yeah, it's fun to do, like, but to do it all the time, like once a week, which is what I'm kind of have been doing, it's just yeah, it's kind of sitting on your own. It's not really cool. It's probably something to do with the pandemic as well. It's making it feel even more sort of isolating. But, you know, I'll probably still do some for a little while, and then yeah, move into, so you can see my face as well, not just my voice, my face. And yeah, a couple of other things I do. So I do YouTube covers, guitar covers. I'm sort of an amateur player, trying to get better. I've had a guitar since I was like 19, so it's like nearly 10 years ago, but I've always been on and off with it, you know, not really sort of knuckling down and doing the hard yards, as they say. But I think it's because I didn't really have a sort of goal. I was kind of doing it just for the sake of it, like learning guitar for the sake of it. I think having sort of guitar covers, like doing that regularly, is going to help me sort of stay motivated, and yeah, hopefully I'll improve my skills and skills when recording as well, which will help this podcast as well. And what else do I do? I sort of write for Sleeping Village I haven't done it for ages, but I sort of write reviews for them. I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but I can't think. Anyway, but yeah, so that's the sort of stuff I get up to. If you stuck around this long, thanks very much. I've got a little treat for you at the end if you've stayed all this way. And thanks to the bands that I've played their songs, especially Omnerod, because Omnerod I actually contacted directly to play their music, and they were like, "Yep, go ahead." So that's thanks to them, and thanks to the PR guys for the other bands. I can't remember who they were. I think it's Viral Propaganda, Gary at Sam PR, and who was the last one? That's terrible. I really need to do my research before I do this. But yeah, thank you to those guys. So I've got one more track to play you for those that have stuck around. This track is from a band called Dawnwalker. The song is called The Will. It's taken from their 2020 album called Ages, which was released last December. They're a band from London, so another UK band. And this is The Will. So thank you very much for listening. I'll see you next time.
Formed from the